zapping or whatever you'd like to do. We're at our Saturday night reading, our third reading of the 2022 Zoeglossia Conference. I know that I am absolutely thrilled to be here, and I am delighted to be sharing this space with all of you. I just want to start by doing our standard accessibility check-in. If anybody has any access needs that are not being met right now or needs anything to feel more comfortable, please let us know via the chat and we will work to take care of that. I know that the captioner has enabled the subtitle captions. We have our interpreters here and we will be spotlighting them. Joe, maybe we could go ahead and spotlight Joe right now, who's doing the interpretation. Here, I will spotlight. Let me see. Spotlight for everyone. There. I want to just make sure that we all see our captioners. I mean, our ASL interpreters at all times. The captioner has also, and Karen, you might do this one more time, put a link in the chat where you can get a third-party subscription, a transcription. And that's in addition to having it at the bottom of the page. And by the way, you could control on your own screen whether you see that or not. So I would definitely like to see that. Recommend that, you know, using the link from the chat is a very good option. I am super, as I said, delighted to be here tonight with you all. We will have, I'm just looking to see if anybody has any access needs. It looks like everybody's great. So, you know, we can move forward unless, you know, put it in now if you have it. The other thing I'd like to suggest so that we really see the captioners and the readers and we hear them well is that when you are, everybody could please mute themselves if they have not already done so. I will be doing that when I'm not introducing. Again, welcome. We will have 9 readers tonight. This is going to be a tiny bit longer than the previous readings. We will be starting with Noa Fields, and Ricky Ray, you're on deck. And how it will work is I will be reading a short bio of each poet. The poet will be spotlighted with our ASL interpreters. I'd like every poet to, as Salim said, I don't want to visually describe you and get it wrong. So if each poet could just give a quick visual description of themselves, that would be lovely. Or an elaborate visual description of yourself if you would prefer. I've been really admiring through this conference the wonderfully different and beautiful ways people describe themselves in those visual descriptions. Some people describe their surroundings, some don't, but I really love hearing people do that description of themselves. So if each poet could do that, that would be lovely. And then we'll read the poem. And as Pinka had suggested a couple nights ago, and we tried last night, and I thought it was lovely, we'll have a brief moment of silence between each poem. I hate to call it silence. I will say a moment of just absorbing the poem. And then you're welcome, and I think it means a lot to the poet to write comments in the chat. I think that the poets really gain a lot from that. So once again, welcome. And our first poet tonight is Noa Fields. Noa, Noa/H Fields, is a Chicago-based writer and curator. She works at the Poetry Foundation and is a 2022 Disability Lead Fellow. Welcome, Noa.
Thank you, Sheila, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Noa Fields. I use she and they pronouns. And as a brief visual description, or maybe elaborate, we'll see, I am a white trans femme with shoulder-length curls and baby bangs. I'm wearing shorteralls today over a beautiful black shirt that my friend Madeline repurposed out of an old John Legend shirt, and it has like beautiful like mesh on it. I love wearing clothes that are either made by or gifted from friends because they make me feel grounded and safe in their love. And tonight I'm gonna read a poem called Exhausted, which is a fragment from a book that I am writing called that mishears Louis Zukowski's Project A. So this is a fragment that uses homophonic translation as its form. Exhausted, after A4. Sad insomnia weeks, body won't shut off, up late thoughts, dismay, seeping, mind altered, a weary mess, danger. Groggy speech is promiscuous. Tonight, trans awaits your seance. Lust is restless, heightened, offering hounds, feasts. I fear my heart, false starts. Cold, lying stranger, bedroom uninviting, dulled love stories, off hours temperament, reckless puberties of our desolation, splintered chest chirping out loud. Email the dead at dawn. Auto da fe. Weary void. Here she called for aliens. The catabasis. A cave of empathogens. A clamorous embalming. Deafen us, gods. Define us through the mystic Ouroboros. Arms and shoulders half-mast. A top-seed overture. Day exiles us, relishes our sorrow. Demonstrative, mouths ajar, rainbows leaking, cries are wanting a wash, hearing, dead end, tragic. Shimmering sin sunrise, one way to come home, shimmying my queer heart. Thank you.
That was very beautiful. Thank you so much, Noah. I will remember one way to come home. Many lines are going to just stick with me for quite some time. Thank you. Next up is Ricky Ray, pronouns he, him. And I'm going to read his bio. Ricky's been a fellow for a couple of years. He is a poet, essayist, and, no exaggeration, eco-mystic. He lives with his wife and his old brown dog in the old green hills of the Hudson Valley. He's the author of Fealty, Quiet, Grit, Glory, and the Sound of the Earth Singing to Herself. And he can be found virtually at rickyray.earth. Welcome, Ricky.
Thank you, Sheila, for the introduction. And thank you, Sheila, Jennifer, Connie, Celine, everyone who's running Zoeglossia. You know, it's a privilege to be part of this organization, to see it in its infancy and the great future before it. And I'd like to extend those thanks a little bit without keeping mindful of time, you know, to the peoples, the trees, all the ancestral forms of being, human, biological, ecological, and universal, that have stewarded the times and places that allow us to be here tonight. And I hope we can steward the times and places so well that many other species can arise and join us. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to read something that's more like a lyric essay tonight. It's basically a full-length book that I'm writing about the earth and how we how we got here as modern humans from microbial slime, you know, how we fucked up and how we might fix up. So I tried to condense that entire book down to 2 pages. We'll see if it works. Essentially, you know, like Elizabeth said the other night, you know, she was thinking how she wanted to spend her time, and a lot of what I think, you know, is important for me and what I can do is just remind us that as we talk about all these different layers of identity, one of those layers of identity is the earth, that we are the earth and we're responsible to the earth as the earth every bit as much as we're responsible to our human selves. All right, let's get going. Identity Earth, an invocation of the ecological self. The story of the earth, and thus the story of ourselves, began 14 billion years ago, when Grandmother Universe was a young whippersnapper of pointillism, a nothingness is everything in which all stars and galaxies, all mysteries and eventualities were concentrated in a single dot. Trillions of degrees hot, the dot exploded and flared forth, in a single stroke commencing the grand symphony we call existence. All planets, all lives, all stories and glories began their unthinkably long journey through the womb of becoming and transformation, whose phenomena to this day continue to emerge in an unbroken process of revelation. A process so precise that if the rate of expansion had been 1/1,000,000% slower, Grandmother Universe would have collapsed. And if it had been 1/1,000,000% faster, she would have exploded too quickly for structures to form. 1/1,000,000%, and instead of all this, there'd be nothing but nothing and dead on arrival dust. Instead, this miraculous creativity began to conduct itself. In one brushstroke, galaxies formed. In another, density waves passed through the Milky Way, igniting our ancestral stars, which blazed, collapsed, and exploded, the cycle repeating until one day, nearly 10 billion years after the first bang, our sun emerged, and around it, a curious planet, neither too hot nor too cold, not quite liquid or solid, a little mischievous in her movements, one might say, inheritor as she was of her mother's creative flair. Earth, then, was a heart of fire, shifting land, flowing waters, breath of wind, sunlight pouring through, the interwoven layers coalescing to comprise the ecospheric whole. Now, let us zoom in on baby Earth, whose first billion years were truly volatile. Radiation, fire, rock, and gas ruled the day. Volcanoes spewing carbon to form the atmosphere harboring warmth. And Earth, her creativity born of the stars, was already bent to her lifelong work of inorganic, her talent for patterning. She conjured the first spark, single-celled organisms, tiny doors through which the whole parade of bio-beings would stream. In her creatures, she became not only animate, but conscious, sentient, intelligent, developing an intimacy and ingenuity that inhabits all hearts and minds from antiquity to now. If it isn't apparent yet, let me state it plainly. Humans arose within the earth, are of the earth, will be from embryo to faint impression in the geological record, the very earth herself. We are emergent properties of an ecological entity, a planetary being who's both life-bearing and life-preserving. And more than that, she's life-living. She lives us every bit as much as we live our lives. No earthly life occurs save in hers, though life is but one of the ways in which she moves. Her ecosystems are intricate, holistic dances of organic and inorganic phenomena, the soil, water, and air inviting, eating, drinking, breathing creatures into her existence. Furthermore, it is in the precise balance of her ecosystems that all life flourishes or disappears. The health of the soil and the health of the water and the health of the air are inseparable from one another and from the health of the creatures who take their nourishment from these matrices. Simply put, either we live on the terms by which ecosystems flourish, or we degrade the systems until they can no longer sustain us and we disappear. It should be clear then that the maintenance of these systems is of the highest order of importance if we place value upon our lives and upon the continuity of life itself. It should be clear too that as we learn of the human body's need for balance through sickness, so we learn of an ecosystem's need for balance through illness, the symptoms of which are biodiversity loss and landscape degradation. If the land is sick, so will be the creatures who drink its milk. And every single living creature drinks the land's milk. So how do we care for an ecosystem? Much like we care for ourselves, by beginning to understand that identity no more ends at our fingertips than life ends with an organism, that an ecosystem is a layer of self we share and are, where the 14 billion year evolutionary journey that gave rise to our parents gave rise to us and will give rise to countless other manifestations and species to come. And where all of our relationships, actions, and their spheres of influence across all points in time. Each of us is simultaneously a person, a family, community, species, life, ecosystem, and planetary existence. And the maintenance of every aspect of that identity is a requirement of ecological health. Caring for the earth is caring for our shared planetary self and begins through a process of familiarization. We put our ear to the lips of the earth and learn that we inhabit the process of life. We don't possess it. We belong to it, not it to us. Then we learn the ways in which our thoughts and actions maintain or diminish life's integrity. We're one of 7 billion specimens in a single species, of which there are currently 9 million amongst countless landforms, rivers, oceans, and other terrestrial inputs, all of whom communicate through the language of embodiment to collectively practice symbiosis. As we begin to open ourselves to this worldwide, all-inclusive collaboration, our ethical imperative becomes clear. Aldo Leopold defined it thus: a thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. And yet we find ourselves in a deeply destructive spiral of outright ecocide, a death dive that threatens to overwhelm the hopes of even the most stalwart eco-warriors. But if we turn to geology and open the book of rock, we find that destruction and creation go hand in hand in the annals of earthly existence. Volcanoes once spewed toxic gases that nothing could survive and spewed oceans of lava that set the world ablaze. And yet over time, they helped establish the carbon cycle that formed the atmosphere and the rhythms of seasons and renewal. It's okay to make mistakes. The earth makes mistakes. She is the mistakes we make. Trees, likewise, were once the most destructive beings on the planet. When they arrived as newcomers to the carbon cycle in the mid-Devonian era, they sequestered carbon so fast CO2 dropped by 90% and the earth plummeted into 100 million year ice age. That's right, trees were once the carbon guzzling bad boys who nearly destroyed life entire. But the slate wasn't wiped clean, and when eventually the carbon began to even out, the earth warmed and the trees were still here, supplying creatures with oxygen, shelter, and food. They were still here, reshaping the world, but this time they were cooperative members of thriving ecosystems, helping the earth realize the creative potential of forests and all the stories of love, loss, joy, and despair that happen therein. Imagine if we could rise to the task and completely reshape the human endeavor. If we could transform from a predominantly irresponsible, destructive member of the earthly family to a member who lives by the principle of shared health and cares for each aspect of the earth as an aspect of ourself. Imagine if we could shift from me-first individualism to cooperative communion, from human as other to human as earth, from ethics by projection to ethics by inclusion, from human rights and interests to the rights and interests of the earth and everything and everyone who enjoys their being within her. Furthermore, the call isn't just a call upon our own abilities and resources. The operative entity facing this future is the earth herself, with billions of years of corrective measures and wisdom at her disposal. Even if we're so wrapped up in our individual experiences, we fail to recognize her in ourselves. But let's say we're too late. Let's say we're one of the more destructive modes and we wipe ourselves and large swaths of life from the planet. Even then, there's far more of the story to tell. Estimates say the Earth has 800 million years of life left. She isn't even halfway through her prime life-bearing years. So to think we're somehow the endpoint of her evolutionary capacities is frankly absurd. But what if we could hold on? How amazing would it be if we followed the lead of the trees? If we outgrew our rebellious, destructive youth and helped usher in a new era, a radical expansion of life forms and consciousness, fueled not by fossil fuels and self-interest, but by communion and symbiosis. How amazing would it be if we were to harmonize with the Earth's creativity, if we became cooperative catalysts in sync with her hand and helped her paint the picture in which there are many creatures like us, a rich spectrum of deeply discerning artistic species, each of us enjoying her health and helping it flourish, each of us enriching her intelligence and experience, each of us deepening her identity and existence, each of us eager to love and uphold the one we all belong to, the being we all are, Mother Earth, who lives in us here tonight and in every single part of her show. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Well, Ricky, that was some sermon. I love what I think it's Liv wrote. She said, this is so full of hope. And I have to admit that in a time that's often felt really dark and difficult, or feels dark and difficult, it was pretty wonderful to hear how you sort of exploded our like narrow perspectives on it and kind of made us really think about the Book of Rock or the Book of Time in a really new way. Thank you for that. It was wonderful. Next up, I'm so delighted to introduce, and Tia, you gave us a way to pronounce your name. So I am super grateful for that, since I tend to be terrible at pronunciation and have to apologize a lot. But I'd like everybody to welcome Tia Gerbeza. Tia Gerbeza is a new fellow of ours. She's a queer disabled poet and multimedia artist. And she comes to us from the Canadian prairies with her spouse. And I love this dog very much. She has 3 corgis. Is that right, Tia? That's amazing. So she, with her spouse and 3 corgis.
This is Taya speaking. Thank you so much, Sheila. Yes, and you can see my princess dog bed in the background for my baby Tonks, who's a Corgi Pomeranian little princess. I am a white woman with shoulder length brown hair. It's sort of wavy. I have large cat-eye glasses that are green and blue. And I am wearing a plum colored long sleeve shirt and a paper quilled sunflower bolo tie that I made. And am I missing any other access need that I need to introduce? Okay, thank you. So I will start. 12 a.m. on the 9th anniversary of my spinal fusion. Naked on my bed, my whole body bent, scalene. In my 45 degrees, measure my dark room, eyes closed, my fingertips, my mirrors, trace the crescent, overlap of skin over skin, and unsolved space. Curled from knees to child pose, I lengthen to learn the parentheticals of curves. My body's rotational dynamics, another language, wanting to be opened, to belong to me. I make a pact, use touch for answers, feel how soft skin is, even calloused patches shimmer, our stars flaking into air. How have I not noticed this before? My own quilled shape, a half moon, my coiled fingertips strokes, papery edges, toes swollen berries. At my own pace, build a circuitry for repair, for what my body remembers. How do I grasp my uneven pressures? What my body has tried to tell me. Thank you.
Well, Taya, that was beautiful. And I kind of love how when you have a reading like this, you have strange correspondences that you wouldn't expect, because Ricky's piece was so planetary, but Taya, in some funny way, the beautiful way you described the geography of the body and healing was very sort of they echoed off each other almost in a, Jonathan would know, it's that Japanese poem where one image kind of echoes another. It's like a sequential kind of, there's a name for it and I'm forgetting, but I thought it was really beautiful how the two pieces kind of spoke to each other unexpectedly. It's my very great delight and honor now to welcome Gaia Thomas. Gaia has been a fellow of ours since 2019. She was part of our first class of fellows, and it's been wonderful having her. Gaia Thomas is a disabled poet living in Alameda, California. She has lectured at UPenn and Michigan State University on crypt poetics. Her work has appeared in several anthologies and will be featured in the upcoming, as yet to be titled, sort of sequel to Beauty is a Verb that Travis, who gave our keynote, is one of, and Kamisha, who's been with us, are some of the editors of. Gaia's manuscript, Seratine, was a finalist for the Carolyn Bush Award. Please join me in welcoming her tonight.
Hi. Okay. So another disabled poet, Nathan Spoon, invited me to submit to St. Andrews University's literary magazine, which is The Scores, was doing a disability poetics issue. And I was asked to submit. And so I did. I wrote this poem during January of 2021. I started a series called the Moon Series, and it was meant to document the transformations we were going through at each kind of moment in time. At that point, we were still unvaccinated, but we're coming out of this long period of lockdown and sequestration. So that's where this is coming from. Okay. Wolf Dream Moon. It was another day when you couldn't pay attention, eradication having been a failure to self-examine. And if they pasteurize the city, I will still make a gutter in the nest with you. Anyone being human, even chickens, even terrorists, even chicken terrorists, this compression of the upper layers into the lower, so that even those who make air cannot find a way through the cave to the sea. In this time of indeterminacy, when cracks thirst for light, the thin, reedy line that peters in and out has the least chance of detection. And you were a balloon I kept tethered to me through lack of touch. On his fingers there was a powder. Hoses washed the blood from the streets. I had to wonder why they wrapped the body so carefully when they took off his face. I kept trying to bring peace to minerals, marble and salt. Seawater kept washing up through this loose opening. I spelled out lust in butter and sugar. First the toes blackened and then the fingers of the hand. I was looking for a way to remember. I started poking holes in milk cartons. Have you seen this person? Kept thinking anything with another side might be where we're going. But there you sat 4 feet away from me and impossible. And I swam in the water beside you every day. And we crossed a field of flowers and did not know the names of any of them. And the skies were the usual anonymous gray at the end of the moment in which seeing generated a you and an I. And without you, there was no I. And we were a kind of evaporation on the water. What would constitute a life but kindness? Light and shadows through the spokes of a bicycle wheel. Depending on where the tide falls, you can see the rock or not. Perhaps we are made of these rips and the utterances of wind when it passes through the places that have come apart. Perhaps coming apart is a witness, something half felt or remembered from a dream, and recognition only what we do to comfort ourselves and invent place, home, love, country, cereal, anything that can occupy a very empty space. Lines on a blank white page that delineate a box that delineates a scene, and our endless human conjectures pushing the algorithms forward, so that we are the product of mutual configuration, and we have oozed repatriation from our estrangement, and we have cooled into green glass on the windowsill, and we have been found on the beach catching light.
Well, I just have to say that nobody writes love poems quite like Gaia. I always feel like they're just sort of this shimmer. Ricky wrote something beautiful in the chat. He wrote, "This is shimmering off the page." And I might be misquoting it slightly, but what a beautiful thing to say. I agree with Stephanie as well. Stephanie Height wrote in the chat, "Go Gaia, such an ending." Now I am thrilled as I'm just delighted because I actually met this next writer years ago in Naropa, where I went to a conference to present on disability, and he was in the audience, and I, was so delighted when out of the blue he applied to Zoeglossia. Or actually when I saw his name on the list of people who'd been accepted, because we had a committee who was obviously going through the applications. Jonathan Mack, and I guess he'll be spotlit here in a second. Jonathan Mack tries to live as simply as possible, so as to devote his life to studying sacred and secular literature, which sounds like a wonderful way to live, Jonathan. After many years in India and Japan, he now lives in Mexico and works harvest season on a farm in New Hampshire. So he's thinking about literature most of the time and working seasonally. I keep imagining it's an apple farm, but I don't know. Welcome, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you so much. It is indeed an apple farm. Peaches, pears, pumpkins. Again, this is Jonathan. I'm a scruffy white man in his late 40s with a gray beard and a hoodie. And a lot of the reason I'm here is simply because of the kindness of the previous reader, Gaia. I would like to acknowledge that she's just a phenomenal human being. So for the last 6 years, all of my work has been done on thousands of 4x6 cards. So there isn't really one unified thing. There's only just one more card, one more note. Just to give a sense of the thing that I do, I'll read a few. And seriously, if you have a clue what can be done with this kind of mind, please let me know. Too late, I realized that my manic style of reading was going to create all kinds of problems, and thus I will be 2 minutes over time. That's rude of me. Everyone has been so careful, and I apologize for that. I am aware of it. Anyway, I call what I do paragraphism, and somewhat at random, here is an introduction to paragraphism. The wish. I know it makes no sense to write a manual about living in the paragraph as a gift and an experiment to those who have no other home, to others only, 3 days welcome, at best, to offer up the paragraph. Constructible, collapsible, traveling home, you make yourself a kind of camping, the way that mantra, name of God, serves as home to sadhus who undertake the vow to spend no more than 3 nights under the same roof or at the roots of the same tree, the paragraph as refuge and as gift for everyone else who had to listen to the fastidious list of why you did not belong, did not deserve, were not worthy. I do not suggest any wars. I cannot give you justice, even though you deserve it. Let us see what can be done with the paragraph. Let us build from letters and from breath what they cannot take from us. Let us be welcome. Let us be welcome here. Let us be welcome here. Paragraphism. Key principles. The paragraph is a zone of resistance, makeshift and floating. The paragraph is a place for people who don't officially matter to put their things, like a backpack, a plastic shopping bag, or a hole in the ground beside a certain tree. Do you understand by now that only very flimsy and momentary things have any chance of lasting? Place all bets on ephemerae. Paragraphism. The paragraph is emergency ration, a simple edible thing of unpromising color, packed into a tray and covered with foil. If you are running, you carry it with you. Sober weeknights, I pretend I'm a genius between 8 and 10. In the summer, it's between 9 and 11. I can't pretend I'm a genius in daylight, obviously. It's a reward for not drinking, okay? Lots of people have odd hobbies. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't make me fat. I don't hurt anyone. I don't dress up. I'm just radiant. I have to wind down, resume being hopelessly deficient, by 10, 11 in season, or I won't sleep well. Until that time, I'm boundless, illuminated. For all of 120 minutes, it isn't already too late for me. Paragraphism is an ideal practice for prisoners, pensioners, virgins, reprobates, school teachers, mystics, and the depraved. Paragraphism is perfect for those with little space, for those with almost no time, for desesperados. Angel, my lover, asks me very often, Amor, ¿tú estás desesperado? And it is true that I am desesperado a great deal of the time, but oddly enough, I am hardly ever desesperado when he asks me. Paragraphism. I pass my days seeing to my stable of horses. Several of them are beautiful, others are charming, each of whom has at least one prosthetic leg, except for the horse with 4 good strong legs and a prosthetic head. Turns out there's nothing you can't do without. Beauty, they say, is in symmetry. Beauty is symmetry, they say. So we will do without them, we say. We have done without them all along, we say. Me, my friends, and I will get along without them. Me, my friends, and beauty will do just fine without them. Paragraphism. Because the longer I am alive, the more the anecdote seems a riddle. You can read what happens to you as you might read a dream. You can become intensely interested in that monotonous, nonsensical, babbling language, that of life. Always, it seems to me, both cases can be made, that the language is random and that it is error-precise. The only thing we know for sure is that it is the tendency of things to speak without ceasing. Of course, then there's always this voice, and maybe you have it too. So what you're disciplined? 48 years old, no job, no money, no genius. $200 room in Jalisco, alone with your English, aiming to show something. What? By 10 hours of daily study with coffee, with timer, Pali scriptures, and postmodern poets. Ooh, only to get stranded on X-Tube, big dicks, at 2 o'clock in the morning, gooning on some semblance of warmth. What good are you? You and your strenuous uselessness, as if virtue is only a swept and bleached floor and eyes so tired they feel scorched. What are you for? Why should your same dumb problems, and something Angel said, and a tattooed narco-traficante free-balling in the park be points on a cosmic map? What good are you? There's a Rite Aid in Wilmington, Delaware, where you ought to be assistant manager. Paragraphism. I am most interested in what appears on its own by itself, from the ruins, from the trash. What has flowers and claws, flowers and claws, flowers and claws. What brushes itself off. What goes on without anyone noticing, without noticing itself. You don't have to go on. You don't have to go on after the after. You don't have to go on, but you can. Paragraphism, alas, a sort of canning process, that same thrifty earnestness, like some grand old maid who cares about economy and not a whit about her mustache, with a mind intent on what Gertrude Stein calls the potatoes, which in this case are tomatoes, such an endless bumper crop. What's to be done with them? The only thing that's super clear is that the neighbors do not want them. Just the same, it appears to be ineradicable, the wish that some use might be found. And so there is this peeling, slicing, salting, boiling process. It is crude. It is unglamorous. Nobody wants your tomatoes. This old maid, however, knows nourishment, knows sustenance. She aims to survive. Paragraphism. It is the maintenance of a secret storehouse. Thank you.
Well, that I don't know why I'm in here. I don't know how to get rid of remove spotlight. Yes, I'm trying to get Rae Rose in here, who is our next poet. And I just want to say, Jonathan, I think we're all in love with that paragraphism. I think we're going to carry around our secret storehouse and the beautiful Oh, now I got rid of you. How do I get back the interpreter? I need help with this spotlighting thing. Interpreter, where are you? Hi, Rae Rose. Well, we're all but now we need Rae Rose as well. Yay! Ta-da! I keep being blown away and then being blown away all over again by the readers here. I am very, very happy to introduce another fellow who's been with us a while and who writes such fierce, necessary, and surprising poems about a subject that's close to me, motherhood in many cases, and many other things. But she's also, Rae has written a lot about motherhood in very original and unexpected ways. I'm going to read her bio here. Rae Rose is a California poet and essayist whose work has been published in Cicada Magazine, Lilith Magazine, and the Patterson Review, among other literary journals. Her book, Bipolar Disorder for Beginners, is an account in poetry and prose of her struggles with that disease. Marge Piercy characterizes it as powerful and emotionally charged. Rae earned her MFA from Goddard College and is the poetry editor for Writers Resist. Let's give her a warm, finger snapping applause in the little windows. Hello, Rae.
Hello, thank you. I'm Rae. I'm a redhead in a green dress. And this is a prose poem that I really don't want to read, but I have to. So here we go. My disability could lead to a pregnancy. Congratulations, the doctor stuck his head in the door. You're pregnant. He shut the door. 18, straight out of the mental hospital, barely able to take care of myself. And now this, I had never had anything close to a pregnancy scare. But something had happened when I was manic. When you're seeing stars fall from the sky, when you're knitting them into patterns with your hands, safer sex doesn't seem important or real. I don't even remember having unprotected sex, but it obviously happened. My psychiatrist said I'd have to get off all my medication to have a baby. Now, in my 30s, I know this isn't true. There are a lot of options for medicated pregnancy. The medication that kept me from harming myself. 9 months was a long time. Even if I wanted to give the baby up for adoption, I doubt I could make it 9 weeks without trying to kill myself again. I don't remember much about the abortion, but what I do remember feels close, like it was yesterday. I remember Somewhere Over the Rainbow played, which at the time I thought was very cruel. The procedure was uncomfortable, but the morphine made a painting of roses look like they were swaying in the wind. Now, I'm a sane-ish woman in her 30s. I've had 2 babies. Both of their pregnancies were complicated, and I had to take oxycodone every day while pregnant with them both times. I had severe postpartum depression for about 1 year after the birth of my second child. She's now only 1 year and 4 months old. So I remember that horror show vividly. Now, I worry about getting pregnant, fear it, knowing that if something happened to my sanity and I slipped again, or just an accident happened with my husband, or worse, I might not have the support and help to have a safe, legal abortion. My grandmother's sister, Leona, was murdered in a back alley abortion, and we are still suffering this loss generations later. I can't take birth control because of the hormones. I can't have a copper IUD because of my anemia. I can't get my tubes tied because it might complicate my PMDD. My youngest child plays with my hair as I type this. I'm happy as a mom. I'm so blessed and lucky, but I can't go through another pregnancy. I do not think I would survive it.
I'm giving a little extra silence for that because wow, Rae Rose. But that feels like the poem we just need to hear right now. I know it must have been hard to read, but like the most necessary poem that we just have to take in our bodies and hold in our bodies for a while. Thank you for that. I'll get all weepy. I'm so proud of this group. Can I just say I'm a little choked up at this moment because all of you have just been giving of yourselves so freely, so generously, and so giftedly. There's such a gifted group here. Next on deck, and I'm hoping for help with the spotlighting here since I have proved to be utterly inept at it, is Walela. And I think I figured it out. Add spotlight. I did it. Hooray. I am thrilled to welcome her, and I'm going to read her bio. Walela Nehanda, and apologies if I'm in any way mispronouncing that, Walela, just tell me, is a Black, non-binary, disabled, queer, demisexual cultural worker from Los Angeles. They have been featured in publications such as Self Magazine, Teen Vogue, The Guardian, Nylon Magazine, as well as listed in Out Magazine's annual Out 100 list, recognizing Walela's community work. I also had the great thing where my oldest daughter, Annabelle, is a follower of yours on social media, and Annabelle Hayes, and she wrote me, "Oh my God, Mom." It was like you gave me props with my daughter, Walela, which has not always been easy for me to get. So I was going to thank you for that in a big way. So welcome, Walela. Now I'll mute myself.
That was such a lovely introduction and such a sweet anecdote. Thank you. I want to give a quick trigger warning. This has a racial slur. I will not be saying it, but it will be discussing racism. I really quickly just want to say thank you to everyone who has facilitated this fellowship. It's my first one. That can be really overwhelming. I think I have been able to come back to myself in a lot of ways, and I'm really thankful for the workshops facilitating that. I was nervous to come here. I'm used to a disability community online, and while this is online, it's a lot more intimate. I have, and along with other Black people, have experienced a lot of racism within our community, and I felt like a lot of these workshops allowed me to kind of finally exhale and speak on that, because I often feel if I talk about both at once, I'm betraying one community or another. And the urgency that every poet has in sharing here just is really helpful. So I'm going to be addressing culture and racism. This is called Crip versus Crip. Just get my pages right real quick. Crip, noun, slang for a disabled person, the whole of the disabled community. Example, I'm on Crip time, meaning time bends differently when the universe that is my body dictates it. Crip, noun, a Black gang that originated in Los Angeles. The word can be used in reference to a gang member or the gang itself. Example, Nipsey Hussle's death made gangs, including Crips, unite in grief, meaning Black is still Black no matter if you're wearing red or blue. I heard Crip for the first time as a kid because I got family from South Central, and there are gangs and manufactured wars and crimes of survival, and there are Crips who are Crips and don't know it, like Mack. A Crip, a man who was protective of the ways death finds the organizers, and so he cradled my 22-year-old self with the "you good" anytime I was being fucked with. When Mack is murdered by medical racism, when Mack dies, my grieving is spit justice. We, all so young and naive back then, but committed to liberation or self-determination, or to call something ours, to name the oppression that hangs over our heads with acid rain. In 2019, I saw the word Crip used by someone who didn't bang on Twitter, wondered if the hood was being appropriated yet again, and questioned if they don't understand how in South Central you don't wear blue because you Crip, red means blood, and as the numbers on the street signs get bigger, the colors matter more. So don't wear nothing suspicious unless you want to where you from, meaning who are your people, meaning what street you live on, meaning who do you know that we know too, meaning you better answer and quick before. In a parallel reality, Crip is an invitation to community that I am told is a positive reclamation of disability, at least I think so. So it seems some days, and other days I am exiled for simply being a N-word, meaning I am too audacious for saying being Black and disabled is real different from being white and disabled, meaning solidarity sometimes ain't functional, meaning there's a quick snap to dehumanize us, meaning so we go quietly into a purgatory. So what would it mean to be a Black Crip in South Central Los Angeles for the disabled Black child in 2019 who isn't a Crip, and yet somehow both will be synonymous with danger, meaning you aren't safe no place, meaning you aren't welcome nowhere, meaning where are you really from, meaning who do you actually belong to, meaning who are you without a name? There is a duality of language. I don't claim Crip because of how I learned it. Mom, Papa, Tupac, Mack and the Rolling 60s, the Jungles and BPS, my ex-lover's twin wanting the aesthetic so bad, my best friend actually living on the street where drive-bys happen so often, there's a permanent vigil, and this shit probably don't make sense to a lot of y'all, right? And it's not meant to. There goes that duality of language yet again, the double entendre, the 1 foot in and another out, trying to jimmy open the door to my imagination, meaning where do I go to find the name for where Black disabled people belong?
Hey, I just feel like I have to give a lot of time. Those poems, tear your heart out and open your mind. It's been a pretty amazing night of readings. Walela, thank you. Just thank you. It's a beautiful poem. I am now honored to introduce a good friend, or somebody who's been a really good friend to Zoeglossia. Our final reader for this evening is our faculty member and board member of Zoeglossia, and just general inspiration for many of us, Meg Day. And here is her bio. And she's Meg, deaf, genderqueer poet Meg Day is the author of Last Psalm at Sea Level, Barrow Street, 2014, winner of the Publishing Triangle's Audre Lorde Award, a recipient of the Amy Lowell Poetry Traveling Scholarship and an NEA Fellowship in Poetry. Day's recent work can be found in Best American Poetry 2020 and the New York Times. And I also know that Meg is a new parent with a beautiful baby. So she's in hectic mode, and we're so happy she's with us here. Thanks, Meg.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Meg speaking and signing. I'm a white, transmasculine, genderqueer person with short blonde hair, dark button-down shirt. I'm wearing hearing aids and sitting near a window with green plants behind me. Two things I want to say really briefly. One is that I think Pinka is going to be our last reader of the evening. I want to make sure that we don't get out of here without having Pinka read. And Pinka, I'm honored to open for you tonight. And two is that, y'all, that poem that they just read, Walela, that was written effing yesterday. What? That was yesterday, y'all. Like I'm over here, like kind of losing it in my seat. So just a moment for what we just experienced, what we have experienced all evening, and also what the last 3 days have been like, which for me have been, what is it when tectonic plates shift? I think sometimes there are earthquakes, and I think sometimes there are volcanoes, maybe magma, things coming from the center of the earth. I feel as if there are things coming from the center of my earth. That's what I mean to say. And I'm so grateful. I've been grateful for a long time to be a part of this organization and to be welcomed into it by Sheila and Connie and Jennifer and everyone who's made it into what it is. But especially to be a part of this retreat. I have been looking on with awe and envy for many years. And so I feel grateful to join you tonight. I'm going to read this long, skinny poem that is, it's a deaf, queer, trans, love, sex poem. I don't know how else to say it. I've spoken about this in our conversations this week, but it's taken me a very long time to come around to, in pursuit of disability justice in my own work, locating how to be in cross disability and also cross movement solidarity with myself in my own poems. And this was one of my early attempts that was made possible finally by Moving Toward a Line by Nikki Finney. It's called It Must Still Be Summer. It must still be summer because the tent goes up easy in the bluegrass and we loiter past sundown without sleeves. The sunset, one thing we can watch that won't require captioning and isn't each other. What did you say then? Hand cupped to my ear, as if it would send more than winter across my arm. What did I believe I knew of language in that moment before everything about me became true? I followed you into the dark like a vowel, a train disappearing into a tunnel at the end of a light. It's night in the tent. And my eyes can't help but deny my ears, so it's my hands that go dowsing for sound. The push broom sweep of our sleeping bags and the hourglass sand of their slow unzip. I catch your lip in the gold leaf glare of your neighbor's third shift headlights, wet road rumble in my hips and yellow cymbal flash bang through your hair. I don't care how it happened, only that it did. 1 minute, an eternity with you tracing the bones in my face with your read-along finger, mouthing me out. Quiet, common mispronunciation I still let slide between my thighs at the right octave. Another, and you are all wicker, flank, soft muzzle in my palm. What makes a woman who is barely a woman move like this? What secret grammar do you know? I feed apple fingers past eager lips, smacking on 13 plus 1, the heat of you sucking at the M of my name sign, my Girl Scout promise. What part of your body isn't saying my name? Say it again. Say it louder. This is the last night of my life when hands remain only one kind of mouth. Whose tongue is this? And where did you learn it? What made you invent a new chord? Then made me play it like a siren for a 3-alarm fire, summon new gods with their good names hot at the reed of my jaw like some kind of symphony disarmed of melody. All these questions and the answer right there at the end of my arm.
Meg, that was beautiful. And everybody now knows what a wonderful person Meg is sort of rescue me from my awful error, Pinka. I am so mortified, but also so proud. Sometimes I feel like there's a kind of holiness in errors. Like I really love that idea of, you know, the beautiful kilim carpet that always has to have one piece wrong in it. Or when they, in Uzbekistan, women weave those beautiful suzerinas and the pattern has to have an error in it. So I'm going to say that it is very exciting, Pinka, and we're so thrilled and honored to have the person who is coming the furthest way to be with us, to end us this first retreat. Pinka PopsiKle is a new 2022 Zoeglossia Fellow. We're honored and thrilled to have her. She is an art historian from Mumbai. In her academic and visual arts practice, she works with Mughal miniatures, early modern natural history, and the concept of the, I'm going to mispronounce this, Ajab. Thank you, Pinka. Wondrous, strange, particularly in imagining of borderlands of nation empires, and as applied to anomalous / disabled bodies. I'm going to repeat that because it's such an amazing idea. The Ajab, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, wondrous, strange, particularly in imaginings of borderlands of nation empires and as applied to anomalous disabled bodies. Welcome, Pinka.
Thank you so much. Yes. Ajab is, by the way, a word in Arabic. I am Pinka, also Priyanka. Often as Sheila likes to call me, I am a brown South Asian woman with short black hair. I'm currently wearing black headphones, cowrie shell earrings, a white top. I have braces and a scar in my throat. In my background, I'm sitting in the balcony. You can see railings, buildings behind the railings, and the first rays of sunlight.
Here.
So I think someone needs to mute their mic. Okay, so I want to dedicate
Walela.
this poem to the. Okay.
Walela, your mic is on.
I want to dedicate this poem today to my wonderful, wonderful cohorts, Liz, DJ, Elizabeth, and Noah, especially that a really special session we had today with Mack, and thank you for opening. Right. So we talked today in our workshop about doing and being, and doing needs to have to write in order to call yourself a writer. In my case, artist. And Red had this wonderful sentence that she just said. Why this writing needs to be a thing we have to be doing in order for it to be true. Yes, so starting with that, there are two places in the poem that I have used Urdu. The first couplet is the last two lines of a very famous Urdu poem called Mujhse Pehle Se Mohabbat Mere Mehboob Mehmaan by a Pakistani poet called Faiz Ahmad Faiz. And the second, I'll translate that as soon as I say it. The second place I use Urdu is the word kalam, which originally means a reed pen used for calligraphy, but it is also now used as the master brush required for miniature painting. So it's a squirrel head brush that paints very, very precise lines. And as an art historian who specializes in Islamic visual culture, I get very excited by the fact that calligraphy was always, or the word was always privileged over the visual, and therefore cinematographers were always paid more than the artists while working on a manuscript. But then giving the same name of color or the red pen to the brush kind of elevates the status of the brush and therefore the visual, which I just find really interesting. So yeah, how to develop a practice. Step 1. Look at all the miniatures you have painted and admire the skill. It was yours to accomplish. Step 2. Smile sweetly and thank those who praise your work. Don't stare them off with your realities. Step 3. Tell off your inconsistent lover in an angry poem because you have bigger things in life to be upset about. It can go like this. Love I don't desire, your kiss you need in prayer, that I never met you on a mountain top that day. Fuck you and all your arrogance, your distance, and your words, my heart is not a crystal that will shatter into shards. And even if it is the shards, I'm never yours to pick. I pick my own. My fingers bleed. My cuts aren't yours to lick. If my pumping organ has been ripped out from my chest, it is not you, not your concern, your conscience is that. Here it is. I can no longer print my finest dead. I've known and painted still, but now my borrowed time is dead. I know not how to art, nor how to life without my brush. In this crippled body, its wood handle was my crutch. Did you know the squirrel hair that hooks its pointed tip pins so sharp a line that it has sliced into my ribs and I bleed pigment more than blood? So don't be so surprised that when you dip your hand into the cut my brush inside, you find no heart, no crystal shards between my ribs and spine. Therefore, setting my body for the perfect painted line. And now, I'm all out of content. A coffer left the rest. I'm writing angry poems tonight to fill my empty chest. What use have I for your love? I've loved no man nor thing like I've loved the sheer delight, the act of painting will. और जो दुख है जमाने में मोहब्बत के सिवा राहत और भी है वसंत राहत के सिवा. There are more sorrows than the sorrow of love. There are more delights than the delight of union. Step 4. Give away your kalam to a young eager painter. Squirrel hair brushes are illegal and hard to source. Also, just artist fun fact, the Urdu line that says Wasal Tirar, which means the delight of union, Wasal meaning union, is also the word from which Wasli paper comes from. Wasli paper is the paper that miniaturists used to paint. Wasal meaning union and Wasli meaning join, because we paste sheets of paper upon paper together, so it becomes a thick sheet so that it can hold pigment better. And I always loved the idea of Wasli as solidarity or a community that can hold pigment together. Yeah, that's
Pinka, what an idea for us to end on. I think that's so beautiful. That whole last section just felt like so gorgeous and the perfect kind of final lines to end on. I feel like this has been some reading, you guys. I almost kind of, wanted to settle in my chest. I love Pinka when you wrote, you want to repeat that line? Tonight I write angry poems to fill my empty chest. Well, I feel like between angry and love and fury and everything else, my chest feels so full right now. It's the strangest thing. I can actually feel it in my body. Can we give a huge line of applause to, can we all turn on our windows and applaud the poets?
Sheila, you're muted.
Thank you, guys. That was an incredible reading. I was hoping everybody would applaud the poets. That was unbelievable. Thank you, guys. And I know that in the past, we've had short discussions afterwards, a little bit about the poems and the readings. I thought that since tonight's our final night, it might be nice to ask if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask the poets, to just drop them in the chat, or since we're all in the same room, raise your hand and we will, we'll let you talk. Ta-da! Or any just final words, if you want to give sort of one-word reviews of the reading, that would be great. I'm sounding a little flurried because I was a little concerned that, and maybe somebody could explain this to me, that there was some sort of a dive bomb person or Zoom bomb person kind of writing some bad things in the chat. Walela, do you want to tell us?
Yeah, so why I was unmuted was well, I didn't know I was, but I was reading up on the chat because I was like reading, so I missed it. And so I was seeing things like imagine like L's across multiple L's, and then like during my poem, and then it was saying imagine being a they them, and it was like one other thing. I had sent 3 screenshots to you, Sheila, over email.
Yeah, and I received
during my poem, but I don't know if it was to the hosts and panelists or if it was to everyone. But it was really disorienting. So like I'm so sorry that my mic was on to like Pinka, like,
oh no, don't worry at all. It was only on for a very, we all have technical things where the mic was on.
Okay, we didn't see it. I think the chat I see is in the air chat, but there was someone here called, and they were here last night too. They were called something like, "You've got to move shorts." Does anyone know who that is?
I was wondering that too. I have no idea who this person
It's
even is.
somebody called Thomas Walters, and they sent me some upsetting messages too. So I think we just
they're still on here. Can we get rid of them?
Yeah, I was trying to find them. Thomas, I'm afraid that we're gonna have to maybe ask.
They left.
They left. Good. It's tough. I just wanted to note that publicly because I got a bunch of messages that said, I'm not sure exactly what this is supposed to mean, that said, "You're probably from Nebraska." I don't know what that means. I was like, I don't know what that means. I have no idea. I was like, I don't know, but exactly. Big love for Nebraska, Meg. So I have no idea. I think Nebraska's cool too. So I didn't really react to it as like a negative comment until I saw, Walela, your screenshots. And then I I thought, oh, because I just thought they were saying you sound, I didn't know. It's like, whatever. But
The shorts, the shorts name is actually was a friend of mine. So
I don't think
not,
they were kicked out.
They said they were kicked out.
Oh,
they just texted me. Which means that if there was something else happening, that person might still be here.
That person.
Walters is gone. Walters is gone, but Shorts was they said like nice things last night. So someone should reach out to them, I think.
Yeah, can we bring them back in?
Heidi, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh my God.
I'm just texting them.
Okay.
Yeah, text them and say it was a mistake and could they come back? I just didn't want to have somebody, Walela, it looked like they were saying some disturbing things to you and I didn't want that to happen. So I wanted to bring it up to the group. Because
very sorry.
I'm very unexperienced with the Zoom bombing thing.
It's so hard when you are public readings, you know, it's just so hard.
Oh, Rita, you are fine. You signed in and you are fine. We're delighted to have you, Rita. I didn't want you to feel bad. I just was a little freaked out that we got whatever seemed like negative, but that is beyond us. I think we're okay. We will make it right with Shorts. Leslie, do you have an email that I can you just text me or
Heidi.
So my friend tried to rejoin and said they got a message that said that they had been removed. So it's not letting her back in.
Well, let's talk to Matt. Matt is our webinar service person. If somebody
have email that I can reach out with or reach out to?
Yeah.
Let me write that down really quick. I had to scroll back pretty far, but I did find those comments and that person is gone. So, because I did miss those as well.
I haven't been Zoom bombed.
I wouldn't say it would. I don't know. It's hard. Yeah.
It's hard. It's so hard.
But it's good to at least acknowledge when these things happen. I don't know what to say. I didn't want to.
I'm glad you acknowledged it, Sheila. We're so sorry.
Yeah, we're very sorry because, you know, it's sad. We've been we hope we could be a loving, you know, friendly group. And I think that, but it shows the difficulty of the general world we're living in. And in some ways, and by the way, Meg, you were such an angel, and Pinka, you too, about my error. I was opening it on my computer, and when I went from one page to another, you know, sometimes it skips forward. And I was in the moment, but I feel like it actually worked out wonderfully. Pinka, your poem was such a beautiful ending to our 3 nights of reading. So I'm very, very happy to have experienced it. And let me just say,
did I just say something, Sheila?
Sure.
So I'm a knitter by a knitter, and you look at my thing that's that shape, it's full of holes. And I think that's what disability is like, and disability justice, that we're always making mistakes and we're always a scarf full of holes, and we just have to be patient and forgive each other.
Oh, I love that idea. Well, I have hopes that it's hard to make mistakes, and you know, people, we want to get it right. But I also think that there's something to be said for what I'm really excited about that I've heard over the past 3 days, and I'm hoping other people will comment on their feelings and actually ask some of the questions of the poets. I am blown away by everything I heard tonight, and especially that idea, Walela, that you wrote that in the last few days kind of blows my mind. But what I wanted to say that is really interesting, and I hope we can sustain as a community, is I have rarely been in a group of poets who can be very insecure and kind of competitive, not in a bad way, but just in a sort of professional way, where I felt so much caring for everybody, for everyone else's work and writing and holding everyone's voice. And I just hope that's something we can all work to keep for each other, because I think it's incredibly valuable. I mean, I'm now 61 years old, and let me tell you, you go very quickly from being sort of rising, you were kind of growing up in the world, coming up to being not exactly over the hill, but like an elder. I hope it's like that. It happens in a blink. And I think that one of the things that you realize at that point when it happens to you is really how important community and mentorship really is. Really that you are going to always create best when you're engaged in a community. And I just pass that on as something I have kind of learned in my little trajectory. And that makes me so happy as a mom and now a grandmother to see among all of you just how rich all your gifts are. And I really want you to walk away knowing that, like how rich your gifts are, how much the world needs your voices. And I will shush up now, but I wanted to say how happy I was to just hear all your caring for each other these past 3 days and 4 days. I'm bad at counting. 4 days. Jennifer, help. Is it 3 or 4? It's 4 days.
It started Wednesday night.
Yeah, so it's 4 days.
Wednesday night, yeah.
And wonderful poems. Just a richness of wonderful poems. So does anyone have any, poetics questions or questions for any of the poets or things that they're curious about hearing? Ariana has a great question, and so does Ricky. These questions are coming fast and furious. I know I asked this yesterday, but I'd love to hear about how people chose which poems to bring into the space. And Ariana, I assume you're partly asking this because I think this is a very legitimate question. You're partly saying, how did we choose what poems to bring into this space? But you're also saying, maybe like poets, how do you know what to submit in the world, what to bring to the table? How do you feel? And I think that's a really complicated, interesting question. How do you feel where the pulse of your work is at a certain moment? I think that's a huge question. I still ask myself that. So does anybody want to answer Ariana's question? Any of the readers, any of the poets here? Just unmute yourself and have at it.
It took me, I mean, Sheila can probably speak to this. I was changing my poem constantly, and it took me until today. So I kind of just go with whatever feels right, even if it may be uncomfortable. Yeah.
And Walela, can you elaborate a little on feels right? Because I think that's the kind of mysterious space of trusting yourself. I mean, what is that? I know what you're talking about. And I find that often if I trust my intuition, if I don't trust my intuition for a reading or even a journal submission or something, I often don't have as good an experience as I do when I trust what feels right. But I'm trying to figure out, how do you get to that space? Like, what feels right,
I think, honestly, if I'm going to just give some background about myself, just like TW abuse, but I'm not going to go super in detail. I was in a 5-year-long abusive relationship with my caregiver. And so after a certain amount of time, your internal dialogue cuts with yourself. Like even with your poetry, I stopped writing. And so that was the first poem where I really felt like I was coming back to who I was when I was 19 and first came to poetry, very bright-eyed and willing to say anything and not be scared. And I was in Meg's class, in Raymond's class, in Lamar's class, it just was very much like it kept pushing home, just like say what the heart feels, speak to it, reach for it. And so today I was just like, yeah, it's really like a lot of nuance and random things, and people may get it or not, but I felt like I've been waiting for that poem for 3 years to come to me. So to me, it was like my best offering as a thank you as well. And so that was what made it feel right.
Beautiful. Ariana, my best offering. I feel like that phrase is something maybe we can carry out of that, because I think I've had different experiences, but it's hard to get to say what you want to say. And I'm sure Meg, many people can speak to this, that sense of risk, that's part of communicating, but also that sense of, I noticed, so this was really Salim's idea. When we were preparing this, Salim said, let's ask people in the orientation what they're bringing into the space, what they're offering. I feel like that spirit of an offering is a really good sort of idea of when it feels right. It's when you not only feel like you're revealing yourself, but you're also sort of saying, this is what I'm offering. This is my offering. I think there's something to that. Is there anyone, Tanya, are you keeping track of the chat? Are there other questions I'm missing? I'm going up and down, but I just want to
I
make sure.
have a couple questions.
Yeah, I meant ones. I know, Ricky, you asked a question as well.
Noah speaking. I have just one response that I just love to share as well.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Noah, please.
Well, I really wanted to share a fragment from Work in Progress with this group, because I feel like I don't really have community to like share work that's in progress. Just like I'm not sure like where it's going yet, so I wanted to try it out. But I guess another way I'm hearing this question of like, how did you choose what to read, is also kind of related to how did I choose which part of this book to misread, because it's like 800 pages, and I kind of like, I'm not interested in translation as a practice of fidelity. I'm kind of interested rather in mishearing, specifically as a queering or intervention in the archive, especially like, like a dead white male poet from the early and mid 20th century, who used ableist language and other language that I am not a fan of throughout the book. And this particular page that I worked on and against had some ableist language in it, specifically related to hearing, which was why I kind of responded to it.
That's a wonderful observation, Noah. We could unpack that for a while. I feel like it's in a way related in interesting ways to some of the things Leslie, I don't know if you heard the conversation we had last night, but Leslie talking about his difficulties, or I know Leslie's here, interests in history, and sort of that's a problematic space. How do you navigate it? How do you create it? How do you make it into something you can negotiate and reimagine? And I feel like that idea of translation and adaptation being what you said, this space where you come in and you're mishearing certain things and mistranslating. That's just a lovely idea. That is phenomenal. Does anyone else want to mention for Ariana's question, how they chose? I definitely in my answer torqued that question one way. And Noah, I love how in answering, you opened the question up again. You said, because maybe, I think, Ariana, what you're asking is just, how did somebody just choose to come into this space, and how did they decide how that would happen? Which is a great question, actually. So if anyone else has an answer for Ariana, please feel free to speak up.
Yeah, I can add my perspective. So, I think that, well, the two things that saved my life, more than any other, aside from my wife and my dog, are poetry and mysticism, or non-dual philosophy. but really that is tied in to the earth and the way that, you know, we are the earth and the earth supports all life. And so at this point in my life, you know, and giving what's happening with life and the earth, I'm trying to give her my voice and ask her, you know, like, what can I say in service of your well-being, and try to let her speak through me. And so that's, you know, where a lot of my work is coming from, and trying to honor that and bring awareness to that, you know, that the immanence of the earth in us. But I feel like as disabled poets, I think, and as disabled people, we have maybe a little more insight into the way the earth is suffering. You know, a line that I wrote that I like to repeat to myself is that every day I thank the earth for ruining my body, that I might know something of the ruin we inflict upon hers. And I think, you know, we have insight into suffering and the way that health isn't just a personal thing, it's something holistic. It involves our community in every aspect of our time on the planet. And I think we're clued into how, you know, holistic health is. And anyways, that's how I chose, and that's what brought me to that place here.
That's a beautiful idea. I would have said that disabled people, I kind of agree with you, because I think one of the things about disability's relationship to the body that's interesting, or to the idea of health, is we're really aware of how a situation changes a lot quickly. I don't know if other people feel that way about their disability, but I feel like if there's one thing it's taught me, it's that pain comes and it goes. I can walk one day, the next I can't. I don't know if other people have that experience, but it feels like I even had the experience of having my body change very radically due to surgery, and how people saw me. So there's sort of this feeling that, I think you're right. I think it makes things like you drive down the highway and see a slag mine, or see even a river cutting into the earth, and you think, you know, the way a canyon cuts through, you know, the water cuts through the earth, you think, oh, that's a kind of suffering of a body, or that's a kind of, is it suffering or process of a body? That's super interesting. Thank you. Anyone else? Ariana, this question has opened up so much for people, I think. Okay, I'm going to ask Ricky Ray's question, which I believe is the next one in the chat. Ricky Ray put in the chat, we have 49 new messages, so I may be missing your question. If so, just hit that, you know, unmute button and speak up. But Ricky said, had a question for you, Jonathan, and I think many of us do. Have this question. If I can ask a question, I'd love to hear Jonathan talk about his composition process, or the impetus for his poem, Paragraphism. So he didn't put that in, I put that in. His question is just so original, so deep, so striking. So Jonathan, you want to talk a little bit about your composition process?
Oh, wow, I can talk about it. It's basically what I spend my life doing on hundreds or thousands of cards, but I can't really explain it. It's just, I wouldn't be able to live if I didn't do it, and things come to me in that way. And it is true that I get really kind of fixated on other things that are made out of many small pieces. Today it was the Bob Kaufman's jail poems that were so amazing. But if you really want to read someone who does what I would like to do perfectly brilliantly, you probably know Clarice Lispector, but just in case you don't know Agua Viva, Agua Viva is a book that I adore. So I love a lot of books that are composed in this way, but it just, there was this is the second good thing that's happened in my life, this fellowship, and the first one was a Lambda fellowship. And there was a completely hilarious moment where everyone was discussing sort of how they compose, and I choose a theme, I write an outline, and there was just, you know, we were going around in a circle and there was no escape. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. You know, I write what the invisible leprechauns say to write on the next card. And that was all I could offer. But yeah, my room in Mexico is just a little laboratory for writing cards, and to read and write this way makes it possible for me to survive. But the big picture thinking is missing. So, oh, and thank you, Ricky Ray, for the amazing book list. And thank you, Walela, for making sure that I got this book, because I can already tell it's amazing. Okay, thank you. That's enough out of me.
I love Clarice Lispector. I agree with that. But I think I don't know. I think your composition process with the cards and the small short things was kind of amazing. You know, just really, it felt very large. Put it that way, Jonathan. All right. What other questions are there in the chat? I'm going up and down, but does anyone else have a question that I missed? Jennifer, you said you had a couple.
Oh, I actually had a question for Noa. Noa, are you still there?
Hi, I am.
Hi, what I like about your work is that you're working with Louis Zoeglossia, although because of academia, because of people's ages, almost no one knows who that is. And as a writer, as a scholar of Larry Eigner, who almost no one knows who that is, I'm just interested in your experience of working with a poet who is not popular, or like just not well known in today.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think
I'm also interested why, like how you found Zoeglossia.
Sure. Yeah, I think what drew me actually to Zoeglossia originally was his homophonic translations, which happen in A, and homophonic translation is a form that I sort of felt really matched like what I was hoping to do in my practice as a crypt poetic. Specifically though, I was interested in homophonic translation within like one language. Like, so homophonic translation is usually like if you have like a poem in French or another language, and then instead of translating the meaning, you translate like the sounds, so it sounds the same but in a different language. And I thought that the potential of that for capturing the experience of mishearing was to capture like what I was mishearing from within my own language of English. And Louis Zoeglosskia's identities in some ways mirror some of mine, like Jewish Marxist immigrant background familially. Music is very important to his practice, and there were a lot of resonances in that for me as areas for me to explore in my own poems. So I thought that there were enough parallels to make it worth further investigation.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. And is Walela still here? Hi, I had a question for you too. And maybe also for Leslie. I wanted to know if you wanted to talk about a little more about the word crip and the intersection between disability and Blackness, because as a white person, I'm always trying to get deeper understanding of intersectionality, and I'm always struggling to get deeper understanding of different disabilities. And I think part of the problem is we all come from such trauma that sometimes hard for us to listen to each other. I know as a person with a speech impediment, as I grow older, I've learned that I've really experienced a particular kind of prejudice that people with clear speech don't understand. And I've never actually embraced the word crip. I don't like the word, and I'm old, so.
That's a good question. Yeah.
No, that's a really great question. Honestly, it really went how it did. So I grew up in LA and I was born in the 90s. So that's kind of high time season for gangs in Los Angeles. And they're Crips and Bloods, and now they're known as like BPS, Bloods, BPS, Crips, Rolling 40s, Rolling 60s, et cetera, et cetera. But these are, I mean, when we talk about crimes of survival, manufactured war, where we're having even police in South Central pretending to be gang members to incite wars so that Black people are killing each other, or Black and other colonized people are killing each other. That was how I understood that word my whole life up until that moment in 2019 when I saw that tweet. So I genuinely, it came from a place of complete confusion. I was like, there's another meaning for this word, like what is happening? And so it was, and it's kind of funny for a lot of Los Angeles Black disabled people, because that's how we grew up knowing that usually. And so one of my close friends has a class where the word Crip is on it on a blue textbook. And in South Central, if you're holding that, that's a problem. And so I felt like it was really important to speak to the cultural differences, just even city by city, for disabled people. And the duality of language has always fascinated me. I love Ngugi wa Thiong'o so much, and decolonizing the mind really speaks about language and about culture, and how language is a carrier of people's culture and is like a memory bank. And so I felt making that distinction was really important to myself, but also to other LA Black people, where we sometimes feel bad for not embracing that word. And it's like, well, if I do over here, it's a problem. And if I don't over here, is it a problem? And so I had to wrestle with why I didn't embrace that word. And it really was out of safety at the end of the day. And also a curiosity for imagination. There are other ways maybe in which Black disabled people with our unique, I hate using this term because it's overused so much, but intersections, where we have our own word, right? And then there's that differentiation, because I do think that is important. So that is the best I can do off the top of my head. I'm pretty frazzled right now.
No, that's pretty incredible. Yeah, I can't believe you could give that's a pretty good answer. You know, I'm sort of interested, Jennifer, because, you know, you and I have been friends for 20 years, right? And yet Crip was a word I always kind of embraced but it was such a personal reason, i.e. I really was always called crippled as a kid. That was what I was called. I wore leg braces till I was 12, and I had those, you know, and then I had surgery, and Jonathan has heard me go through all this, but they used this surgery on me called a double osteotomy, and it was called the Ilzaroff method, which was actually developed by this guy in Siberia under Stalin's labor camps because they keep the leg open for like 3 months at a time. It's like this very kind of torturous way of fixing your crooked legs. You know, it's very hard to change a bone. But anyway, so for me, it was about a reclaiming of identity. And when I first heard crip or cripple or thought I could use it, it was, but I can't figure out if that was good or bad, because in some ways it was just a word I was at home with in some really perverse way, if that makes sense.
Give some more like historical framework. I actually do believe crip, like the reclamation of crip as like a more empowering word, is older than like Crips as in like the gang, because that's 1969 is when they originated in Los Angeles. They're active in 220 states, but it's in LA where it originates. So it is later, but like I'm a 90s baby and I have family in Los Angeles, so that's what you know. But like that's like also a generational difference as well beyond cultural, like, and so like the culture goes in there, and it's just the culture of disability actually is really what has been fascinating me a lot throughout this entire conference fellowship.
Well, Layla, I would be surprised if it was later. I would, because I'm thinking, when was the access living movement? You mean, what's really shocking about disability, like when do we have crip starting to appear as an empowering word, Jennifer?
Well,
about the same time.
Not till maybe the 70s.
The 70s, right.
I would think the 90s.
I would, yeah, Kay writes, I would think 70s.
But
maybe.
Lieber Moore, as Celine talked about, uses crip with K. So crip population, yeah, Kay just put it in. If I was thinking about this, for me, I've always said I don't like the word, but that's not true. And I know this is controversial to say, but in crip poetics, there's no room for experimental poets.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is only narrative poetry, period. There's no experimental poets who are crip poets. So I think that was maybe my resistance more than the word, because I'm not a narrative poet. So
yeah, let me just because I don't want to lose track of the question. I also wanted not to switch gears because this is great, but I didn't want to lose Leslie's question. Leslie had a question for Tia, and he wanted to ask her about open. Leslie, do you want to give her your question really quickly? I'm trying to find it. It was, your question was to Tia about open field use in her poems, which I think in some ways, even though it seems strange, is an interesting segue for this discussion. I just want to make sure everyone's questions get answered. So Leslie, what were you going to ask Tia about her poem?
No, that was addressed already. She gave the information to Ariana's question.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be a good moderator and not lose anybody. We can go back. Sorry.
Wait, I have a question. So, Tia, are you influenced by Charles Olson and Robert Duncan?
No, I would need to read them.
Oh, the Robert Duncan and Charles Olson are the people who create the term open field.
I'll write that down. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's actually a good book by a woman called Melissa Kwasny towards the Tia, if you're ever interested, about sort of that, because she has a lot of different poetics essays, like, you know, Duende and stuff. But I love this book because it does include some of those open field poets are really interesting because they were thinking that the line should be as long as the breath. And you're better at Charles Olson than I am, Jennifer. But anyway, And it's interesting to think about those ideas in terms of disability poetics, because that idea of the breath and the line and the breath and the line shaping how you're placing lines on the page, because the open field is where you have the poem where a word appears, there might be a spacing, and there's a lot of use of white space, is kind of about, when you read some of Olson and Duncan's writing, about trying to put the body in the poem in some ways. And in some ways, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, both of them had experiences that could be considered disability experiences. Larry Eigner is the primary.
Well, Larry Eigner, who I just wrote biography of, is considered the ultimate person in projective voice / open field. Olson's, yeah. Gaia's pointing out that Olson's ideas actually came from a woman named Frances Bolderoff, and that's true. Yeah, that's true. Olson called it projective verse, and that projective verse is the line is as long as the individual breath.
Okay, yeah.
And Duncan called it open field, but Duncan had a disability called myopia, which is a visual disability, and Olson had giantism and a lung disease.
That's great. Yeah, it's true. And I think it's super interesting. I am just looking at the clock, and I realize our interpreters have to leave us because they're smiling at me. Yes, they have to go. And also I realize it's been a long few days. So I wanted to kind of, I know Elizabeth's saying good night. Everybody's sort of heading off. Our interpreters should be, free to go at this point. So I know we could go on and on about these discussions, but I think it's giving us we had an earlier community conversation about, well, how might we stay in touch through the year? And a lot of people were talking about maybe having monthly salons. And I'm interested in, trying to develop that idea so that maybe some of them are more formal and some allow you guys to continue some of these dialogues. I just want to say thank you all. I think it was a really fun night. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. And good night.